Welcome to Behind the Build. I am your host, Jonathan Jacobs. Today I've got with me a gentleman who connected with a couple of years ago during the pandemic. I saw some of the work that he was doing, really liked it. We exchanged messages, we exchanged phone calls, and kind of kept in touch over the last 4 or 5 years. And today we finally actually meet in person. We're no longer just like fun friends.
Real human
pals.
beings, yes.
So today I've got with me Jeff Cogliati from B+H Architects. And so Jeff, thanks for joining.
Thank you for having me. Thrilled to be here.
So as I kind of mentioned, so Jeff and I had been in touch in many ways, kind of like pen pals. Was exchanging messages through Instagram and every now and again a text and phone calls and just kind of keeping in touch. And he's recently established himself with B+H Architects and a fairly interesting career leading up to that. And so we'll cover all that ground. I'll start it off with where I start off with everyone and just kind of get into like what was life like for you at an early stage of your life. What were your interests when you were a wee little child? and were you a maths guy, a sciences guy?
No, I hated all of it actually. I was actually a really terrible student.
Okay.
Growing up. Just, what interesting, I was thinking about this the other night that I'm really fortunate. I think maybe from the age of 5 or 6 years old, I knew I wanted to pursue a career path in architecture.
How did you know what an architect was when you were 5 or 6?
I have no idea, but I have this vivid memory of a lifelong friend of mine. We were in elementary school and talking about, I think we learned the word occupation that week, or, this term occupation was getting thrown around in school. And so, everyone was talking about, what are we going to do when we get older? Somewhere along the line at that young age, I got drawn to this idea of designing buildings. I don't know how, I don't remember where or when, but I was just really enamored by this idea of, taking a drawing and turning it into a building.
That idea, taking a drawing and turning it into something real, that's something I think about and experience a lot when I'm at Kaplan's Appliances. They understand that design isn't just what you see, it's how things connect. The line between material and form, the way a curve meets a surface, or the way a surface can curve. Every few years, they rebuild their entire showroom. And as maniacal as it sounds, it's not because they have to, but because they want to test new ways of integrating appliances into the architecture and into the experience of being at the store. They do it for the same reasons why you as an architect or a designer sketch and then resketch. It's to explore how the form and function can live together cleanly. Kaplan's works with hundreds upon hundreds of design professionals who think the same way. People who care about the smallest detail can change the entire feel of a space. If you haven't already been to the showroom, I suggest you go. Feel free to connect with me. It's Jonathan, JONATHAN, at waldenhomes.ca, and I'll connect you with a specialist who will understand what you're looking for and what your needs are and set you up with the right salesperson for what your experience should be. Again, it's Jonathan, JONATHAN, at waldenhomes.ca. Now, let's get back to Jeff. So what did that look like for you at 5 and 6? What were you doing?
Nothing. I didn't really act on it at that age. I was always into
drawing?
Yeah, a little bit, and always into a lot of the boy stuff, building things, Legos, and we used to build ramps to jump our BMX bikes off of, build forts out in the bush, but didn't really do much in terms of designing.
Okay. Wait, before you go to
Sure.
that, where were you growing up? Were you Toronto or where were you?
I grew up in the Windsor area.
Okay.
Yeah, so not a lot of architecture in the Windsor area to be inspired by, but that's why I'm here in Toronto. But spent a lot of time in Detroit.
Okay.
Growing up, it's a border city, and so spent a lot of time going to sporting events, concerts. So several times a month would be in Detroit, and I think that definitely resonated, seeing beautiful Art Deco buildings across the city there. I mean, Detroit has such a rich architectural history that So I'm sure that, kind of permeated my subconscious
Yeah.
as a youngster. And yeah, I wasn't a great student in elementary school, even most of high school. I knew what I wanted to do, and I was focused on this career path as an architect. But you're not really learning a lot of those, certainly math and like other topics are relevant, but it's not like getting into designing buildings when you're in elementary school.
So
Or
what were you busy doing if you weren't doing that?
I was playing sports.
Okay. What'd you play?
Played hockey, played a little bit of lacrosse at a young age.
What were you playing competitive? Were you playing
Uh,
prep? Were you playing
hockey?
select?
Hockey
AA?
was no, nothing like that.
Okay.
Did a little bit of travel hockey. By the time I was, I think, 14, I was over it, and I really got into playing music.
Okay.
I had a neighbor who had an electric guitar,
Okay.
and actually very similar to this one behind your head, a red Fender Stratocaster. And I picked it up, and I just fell in love with playing music. And actually, interestingly, I think that's really kind of tied into my architectural career throughout my entire career. Like there's always been an alignment between music and architecture to me. And fast forwarding a little bit, but even in my undergraduate years, spent a lot of time looking at the kind of the crossover between music and architecture. So I'm sure that as a young teenager, playing in bands and playing the guitar and creating music, that to me was like the kind of first step in learning about creation, learning about taking an idea, concept, and doing something with it,
Right.
generating something. So I think that was really the catalyst for me is, like, hey, I really like being creative. There's this part of my brain that feels really, really good when I'm creating things, whether it's, a song on the guitar or a building. And
as just a side note to this, just prior to us starting the recording, the Stratocaster that he referred to behind my head, it was one of them that I built. It's red and it did fade and all the rest of it. And some of you have been here, might have seen it. But anyhow, Jeff picked it up and immediately went into playing Led Zeppelin, who's probably one of my favorite bands.
Well,
and I was like, oh, we've never met before, but here we are. And we're like kindred spirits. Here you're starting off with Led Zeppelin. I love it.
I felt it.
Sorry, that was a complete digression. If that's even a word, is digression a word?
Yeah,
I don't
digress.
Think it is. Yeah, I digressed.
It.
Sorry. Well, let's go back to where we were. I just wanted to say that because I think that there is an important connection in everything that relates to what architecture is and what building is, to the connection between what you are as a professional and what you like as a person.
Sure.
And how it can resonate between people. And so there's we built a bridge there.
For sure. And I learned a lot about myself, playing music, playing in bands, being around other musicians and just creating music together. I think it's a lot like being in a team and designing and creating buildings and collaborating with your team of designers and architects. So there's kind of there's something nice and crosses over between, from music to architecture that way.
So what did it look like? So tell me, you're in high school, your grades are, okay.
They weren't great. And the change was, I think grade 10, we had the opportunity to take a drafting course.
Okay.
And so I did. I'm like, okay, great. This is finally something that's going to lead me down this path.
Yeah.
And so I took this course. I loved it, and that was like a lot of hand drafting. We're still learning to, draft on a drafting table then. But I think one of the first generations of AutoCAD had come out. So we started learning AutoCAD, started kind of fiddling around on the computer, understanding CAD software. Yes, this is what I want to do. And, I remember the drafting teacher, I think he had studied architecture and he, somehow found his way into teaching at a high school. And he saw that in me and he said, you should really stick with this. I can tell you're passionate about this. And so I was able to go back in grade 11 and still was really loving it. By grade 12, I think I was like kind of a TA for that, for the grade 10 So yeah, I was about 2 years older. So I was just trying to guide
TA in high school.
well, I was like, trying to guide the grade 10s and
Yeah.
and show them around like
This is how the stuff works.
drafting and CAD software. And so at that time I was really committed. I knew I wanted to pursue this path. Like it was just kind of cemented for me that I was going to go down that road. I realized that I really need to get my grades together if I want to go to university. And so by grade 11, grade 12, I started taking it much more serious. Fortunately, passed and got out of high school. And at that time I was still in Windsor. I wasn't really ready to kind of leave the nest. And there weren't too many opportunities in the Windsor area for, architecture if I want to go to university.
Yeah.
So I started by doing an architectural technology course at St. Clair College in Windsor. And, and I always say it, now I have 2 degrees and this diploma that I first got at St. Clair College. But I found that was some of the most meaningful education I had received, was this 3-year college diploma, just because it was, it taught me a lot about building assemblies and like how buildings are actually constructed. It wasn't just focused on the theoretical side of architecture. It was very practical. So we were doing a lot of drafting, a lot of spending time on site, reviewing projects that were under construction, and whether it was a small little home that was undergoing a renovation, up to commercial buildings. The teachers there were quite good. The professors there were good at kind of exposing us to a lot of different, typologies. And so by the end of, my grades were, I was doing really, really well in college.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, I have to take it further than this. I know that, I need to do if I want to be a licensed architect, which I realized at that time that was the path that I wanted to pursue. I needed a university degree. And so I was able to transfer my credits from college over to Lawrence Tech University in Southfield, Michigan.
Okay.
And so I went over to Southfield, Michigan. I was crossing the border every day for 2 years and completed my undergraduate degree that way.
Where is Southfield?
It's about 20 minutes outside of Detroit.
Okay.
It was a great experience. We had
like near Royal Oak area, or
yeah, it's like near 10 Mile Road. So it's it's like 10 miles out from the downtown core.
Yeah.
And it was a great experience because we had like a downtown studio course. So we spent a lot of time actually downtown off campus. We had this kind of satellite studio right in the heart of downtown Detroit. And so, you're just surrounded by this incredible architecture, and the professors there were amazing. Again, Lawrence Tech is it's a technical school, right? So it was a great way to kind of transition from college to university.
Right.
And so I completed that degree, and I had picked up a job with a local firm in Windsor while I was doing my undergraduate degree. So I was working part-time for a small architectural practice, and we were mainly focused on like retirement home renovations. That
How did you come to this practice?
I don't recall. I don't recall if there was a post, an ad for this job. Somehow I got connected to this architect, and he kind of took me under his wing, and he was like an accessibility guru. He had a disabled son, and so he kind of made it his life's mission as an architect to help retrofit buildings, to bring them up to accessibility, good accessibility standards. Yeah. And so, I was a young university student, and we were driving all around Ontario, going to these nursing homes and retirement centers, all over the place, everywhere from Ryerson to Renfrew to Ottawa to Guelph. And it was a great experience, because I was seeing the projects in real time. Yeah. I was doing a lot of drafting, so I was learning about construction details and then seeing them on site as these buildings were being constructed. And I stayed with that until the end of my undergraduate degree. And then I needed a change of scenery. I knew that, especially with at that time in Windsor and Detroit, there wasn't a lot of opportunity for emerging architects, and
Yeah, well,
so
Detroit kind of like faded away at this point, right? Like the
it was
city,
still struggling
the
at that
city was
time.
going into a massive recession, wasn't it? Like
Yep. Yeah, and there was this
automotive crisis and
significant population
yeah,
decline. I think they dipped below
yeah.
700,000 population there.
This is when this is
2005,
yeah, yeah.
2006.
This is exactly, and then the recession hit.
That's it.
Yeah,
And so I saw, I wanted to be close to my family in Windsor, but I knew I needed to go where the opportunities were. And so at that time it was Toronto. And
one other question to ask you, sort of
sure.
before you get to Toronto. While you had been making this commute in school and then in post-secondary, had you connected with anyone else? Was there anyone else locally that was going to the same school, or was this now like a kind of like a solo mission for your career?
Locally to
Meaning, like in Windsor, were you traveling with anyone else locally from Windsor that was going to the same architecture school in Michigan?
Yeah, there were three of us.
Oh, there were.
There were three of us. So there were three students that I had connected with. One of them was a high school friend who I'm still very close with today.
What a coincidence.
So him and I, and then another guy who we met in college. We did the college program together.
Yeah.
A lot of shenanigans with with those guys. A lot of late nights building models, and we really created a nice friendship. And then the three of us all went over to Lawrence Tech University,
Okay.
and so it's been kind of interesting to watch our career paths,
Yeah.
and where everyone's at today.
And part of what I was getting to was, do you have other people that you've experienced this growth with?
Yeah. I mean,
So it's interesting.
The two guys, they're still in that area. So actually, both of them work in Detroit.
Okay.
Interestingly, but we chat all the time. We compare notes on what our different practices are up to and the type of buildings that we're focused on. Yeah. Actually, interestingly, the one fellow, he went back and became a professor at St. Clair College.
That's cool.
So he's there, and so we bring his classmates, or his students to Toronto and give them tours of our office space, show them around construction sites here. And so that's become a bit of an annual thing, showing his students around the city.
I was in Detroit a couple of years ago I have a friend that lives just outside of Detroit, in like the Royal Oak area, Bloomfield, West Bloomfield.
Yeah, sure.
And so when he was getting married, we were staying in downtown Detroit, and there was a building that was getting built across the street. And I remember texting a few friends here in architecture about the way this construction was happening. And it was a top-down construction. I had never seen it, didn't know that it existed.
There's a lot of core, and then
and they were
slabs coming down on you.
No, they had this like this whole elevator system. They would build the entire floor on the ground on this elevator system, and then it would get funneled up, and they would connect all the assembly parts, and then come back down.
I've seen that around Detroit. I don't know how that's become a bit of a thing there, because I've never seen it here.
Right?
Super fascinating to me. That top down.
So crazy. Sorry, it was a complete. Again, I digress.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, okay. So we talk about opportunity and wanting to come to Toronto. Let's go. Let's leave the U.S. behind and come to Toronto.
So I beelined it to Toronto. I came here. I found a position with a firm here, WZMH. And they were looking for a junior designer, and I drove here. I think it was in the last week before I had graduated. We're wrapping up the semester. I knew in a couple of weeks I was going to be done. Yeah. And fortunately, I was able to land this position. With a pretty significant and prominent firm here in Toronto, and so that's what I did. So I moved here before actual graduation. So I ended up going back there to do the graduation ceremony. But by the time that happened, I was already living here. So that's how eager I was to, just to kind of switch it up and get a change of scenery. And so that experience was good. It was, it was interesting. We were working on lots of different types of projects, a lot of work in the Middle East at that time. So, that firm was focused on a lot of that, but we were also doing data centers and hotel renovation and conversion in Egypt, and so it was like kind of a nice variety of work.
And how long were you there?
I was there for about 1 year, and then I had an opportunity to go to HOK, and I went to HOK. They actually brought me in as a 3D kind of 3D specialist, and so, I don't recall how that transpired, but um, I've always been super passionate about the technology side of architecture. Even in high school, really trying to understand the CAD software, as primitive as it was at that time. And then once we got into college, we were learning 3D Viz. And I've always been just a fan of utilizing technology,
Yeah.
to do the best work in the least amount of time. It's like I feel like if we can rely on these tools to just give us the best outcome, that's always been my mantra as an architect. And so I was connected to HOK somehow, and they said, "Hey, we're looking for somebody that has a real kind of specialty in 3D visualization, 3D modeling, but that has that kind of real sound architecture background." So I joined the firm, and was there for about 2 years, and then unfortunately, recession hit in 2008, and those 2 years were phenomenal. I loved working there. It was a great team. We were working on some super exciting projects across primarily Dubai at that time. It was just, Dubai was going through
A massive boom.
yeah.
They had more cranes in Dubai than anywhere else in the world.
And and we were right there. We were working on a little portion of the world islands that was called Okeana, which
Yeah.
was like the Australasia, kind of portion of the world. And
Did that project ever get finished?
no, they did
They stopped, right?
they kind of created all the land masses.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, a lot of that's been kind of eaten back up by the
By the sea.
Yeah.
And then they finished the Palm Islands, but then I know the
Yeah.
Palm Islands, I think, fell apart.
And the world was supposed to be, the kind of the next man-made island there, or set of islands. And we were doing a hotel there, a number of like low-rise townhouses and apartment blocks, and it was a really nice scale we were working on, doing a lot of competitions at that time too. And unfortunately, 2008, everything just kind of shut right down. And so at that time, I was in this position where no one was hiring. It was a really tough economy. And I knew I wanted to go back and complete my master's degree. I had been putting it off a little bit. I wanted to get a couple of years of real work experience. And so by that time I had it. So I saw it as a natural time to to go back and do my master's. And so I only applied to one school, which was Ryerson. And at that time they had it was a brand new master's program. So it was a little bit risky because the program actually wasn't accredited.
Okay.
And they were working on it, and we knew that they were working on it, but we knew that there was a small possibility that we could go through a couple of years of this effort and not have an accredited degree. Fortunately that didn't play out that way, and they got the accreditation right at the tail end of the program. So we're all like, this massive weight was like, okay, this is going to be a recognized degree.
Yeah.
And so actually during that time, I went back to WZMH and was just working part-time. I needed money. I was a poor student. And so they were gracious enough to bring me back into the firm, and I worked there while I completed my master's degree, and then I needed a shift, and so I joined Audax Architects so that would have been in 2010.
Okay.
And Audax was just kind of a startup architectural practice, and it was, I think there were three of us, including the principal there, but it was, it was a great experience. We were working on a lot of custom, single family custom, some low rise or mid rise, multi-res projects.
When you work on large buildings or even a single custom home, you start to realize how often design quality comes down to the edges, where two materials meet, where sound travels or stops. That's where the doors comes in. They understand that a door isn't just a boundary, it's a part of the architecture. Their systems are built around precision. Flush frames, concealed hinges, perfect reveals, the kind of detailing that either elevates a space or ruins the line if it's off by a millimeter. And it's the same with their windows. The glazing sits cleanly within the wall system, proportioned to capture light, not fight it. The joinery is tight, the sightline's minimal. So what you see is the design intent uninterrupted. Acoustic and thermal performance are dialed in, which matters when you're working downtown or in residential neighborhoods or trying to control light and heat on a southern exposure. It's not about catalog parts, it's about coordination, on site measuring, shop drawings that speak to the architect's intent, and an install crew that works seamlessly with the builder. The doors work with architects and designers across the city, across Canada, and into the US who care about the same things: proportion, materiality, and control. And when it's right, you don't even notice the door or the window. You just feel that the space is quiet, aligned, and complete. If you'd like an introduction, I'm happy to do so. Email me. It's Jonathan, Jonathan, at waldenhomes.ca, and I'll connect you with the fantastic team at the doors. Now, let's go back to Jeff.
And so, I was there for a short time. And I'm just hearing myself. There's a little bit of bouncing around at that time in terms
You're trying
of
to figure out what you want to do.
Trying to figure it out.
This is not an uncommon theme.
So, you're trying to figure it out. And I had a friend who I had worked with at HOK, and he's like, Jeff, you gotta come over to, at that time it was Page and Steele. You gotta come over to Page and Steele. He had been there for about a year at that time. He's like, you're going to love it here. They're looking for an architect or an intern architect to come in and join the high rise residential team. And so I was like, I don't know if I knew that at that time they were like much more of a production firm. I was, pretty set on being a designer. I love design. I'm so passionate about design. He goes, no. They're like really trying to change the nature of the practice. They want to get much more, become much more of a design firm. They're looking for someone like you to help with that. And so, I met with I had given him my portfolio reluctantly. I didn't think much about it. I had a portfolio assembled, and so I just kind of gave it to him. And maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 months had passed, and I had forgotten about it. And then, I got this call it was a Sunday night, and I got a call from one of the partners there. And, he said, hey, I came across this portfolio. I don't even know how it landed on my desk, but, he was kind of fascinated by the work that was in my portfolio. And he said, we had this great chat for about an hour and a half, and it went late into Sunday night, and we just hit it off. And he said, hey, I'd really love to offer you a position, at Page and Steele. And at that time it was merging into IBI Group. So Page and Steele IBI. He said, I feel really weird about, offering you a position without meeting you. Can you come in? Why don't you come in tomorrow morning? So I went in, and again, we just really connected, and he offered me this position. And so, to fast forward a little bit, I spent almost 13 years in that position, and kind of went up the ranks from.
And what were you?
High rise. I mean, significant amount of high rise residential.
Okay.
We did
located where?
All over, primarily the GTA.
Okay.
If you drive down Jarvis Street, Jarvis and Dundas, there's a number of buildings that we did with Center Court Development and Gupta Group. They're up, and they've been up for many years now.
Yeah.
And some work in Montreal. We did 3 towers there that are up. So the range was kind of like everything from mid-rise to 50 stories and up.
Yep.
And we just rode this wave, the condo boom wave. So it was incredible actually, because as an architect, I was exposed to a lot of work in that time that I was there, and had I'm grateful I was able to be part of dozens of high-rise buildings that are now constructed and shape our skyline, not only here in Toronto but in Montreal and in Vancouver, and kind of all over Canada, Mississauga. So I joined there as an intern architect, and I was there until 2023. In 2022, I became a principal for the firm, for IBI Group, and then we went through an acquisition, yet another acquisition, to Arcadis.
So from Page and Steele, the IBI to Arcadis. Okay.
Yeah, so two acquisitions. The market was still really good. The condo market was still really good at that time. But there were some things happening through that acquisition that just didn't resonate with me, and I kind of felt like I had reached my peak there as an architect, and just frankly needed a change. And I had been thinking about that for a little while.
Before you get into this whole change, I'm curious to know a little bit more about what was team structure? So if you were at that point, you became a principal. What was the size of the team that you were working with? How many intermingling teams were you connected to, and what were you doing in the high rise? What was your portion of work?
So there was the teams that reported to me. There was about 30 staff. And some of those teams had their own associates that were leading. So I was kind of those associates were reporting to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was about 30, and my skill set and what I've excelled at through my time there was really leading projects right from feasibility. So developers would approach us, looking to acquire land.
Yeah.
Hey, can you give us a sense what's the highest and best use of this land? And then taking those developments right through, rezoning, site plan approval, construction. And but I was very, very heavy on the front end, on the design side. Sat in a lot of community meetings. Spent a lot of time at City Hall meeting with city staff, planning staff.
Yeah.
But I really became passionate about the execution side of it's one thing to do a rendering, those beautiful renderings that we all would see through the marketing of these condo projects. It's another to execute it.
Yes.
and maintain that vision.
Yes.
And I learned that lesson the hard way on a couple projects, because we were very, very busy. Sometimes you take your eye off of a significant detail, or and then all of a sudden you drive past or go do a site visit and see your building under construction, and that detail doesn't look anything like the rendering. And so I hadn't made this mental shift where I'm going to just be immersed in the whole, from feasibility right through construction,
right,
to ensure that these projects
are built within the intent of the original design.
Yeah. So during that time, I had also, and I haven't touched on this at all, but I had, I have my license. I'm a licensed architect here in Ontario, and I had a number of, friends and family asking me to, hey, would you design my home for me?
Yeah.
And so, it was challenging to do that, because I was very, very busy for that, decade plus that I was with that firm. So a lot of late nights and weekends. But I took on a couple of those custom residential projects a year, and found that I really kind of like that scale. Like, it's a really fun scale. It's great working with homeowners, designing their homes together, and then you also see the fruits of your labor much quicker than the condo world. Sometimes
7-8 years.
Yeah, 7-8 years, whereas a custom home can be, a couple of years. So I hadn't really, put a lot of thought to ever pursuing that, just that scale as a, kind of career path.
Yeah.
It was always just a bit of a side thing for me, and that's going to lead me to where we are now with Bloom. But I'll backtrack a little bit. So at the end of 2022 or 2023, I was approached by B+H, which is formerly Bragman and Hammond, and they were looking for a principal to lead the residential sector. They had a long history. They have a long history of doing beautiful, office buildings, healthcare buildings, institutional.
Mm-hmm.
They hadn't really ever focused on residential as a sector, and so they somehow, through a mutual contact, I was connected to them and went and met with the CEO there, and we just kind of hit it off. And he had asked me, hey, would you want to come and join us and lead our residential sector? I was excited about it because it was like kind of thought of as a bit of a startup within a legacy company that's been around for 70 years. Hey, you can come in, you can shape this sector. And so I did that. So I left Arcadis and joined B+H, and and then the condo market just tanked.
The bottom came out, the wheels came off, and it was a car fire on the side of the highway, like see in Detroit.
And actually, the first year there was great. Brought in a lot of work, really was feeling positive about it. And it was year 2 that I was like, oh man, things are really kind of slowing down. And, it just so happened during that time, I had been thinking a lot about, the custom residential work, single family homes. I'd been spending a significant amount of time exploring, kind of new innovative tools, AI tools, that have recently surfaced. And I couldn't help but feeling like there was an opportunity for me to start a firm, do the kind of work that I'm really passionate about, and use these tools as a means to deliver these projects in a kind of a hyper efficient way.
Right.
And so, I've been thinking about that for many months. And as the condo market has slowed down, I had some significant projects kind of land in my lap, and not the firm's lap. And I thought, I think there's a real opportunity for me to start something fresh, drive this firm forward in a way that I want, i.e. through this technology driven path.
Mm-hmm.
and really utilize these incredible tools that are available to us
Mm-hmm.
to do that work. And so that's what I did. And so this year, in August, I've officially launched the company Bloom Architects. 2025.
Yeah.
And we're positioning ourselves as, I think, the first, if not one of the first, kind of fully AI-driven architecture studios in the country. And I've been talking with a lot of people lately about this, this idea and how we're setting up the practice. People are kind of two minds when it comes to AI. Yes. and using these tools. I see it as a real opportunity for us as architects to, kind of eliminate the menial stuff that we spend so much of our life doing,
like
flipping through the building code for hours on end. Super important. We all need to know how to do it, but it's very time consuming. Or going through zoning, doing the brain damage of flipping through zoning bylaws and understanding the nuances of, every municipality's zoning bylaw. And there are tools out there that, can really help facilitate a much more expedient review of these things. Right. So, I have been for the last several years, looking at a lot of these tools, and we all know about the visualization tools like Midjourney, and like more on the kind of superficial side of what we do, the rendering side, the visualization side. But there are also tools that can, help with these things like speeding up building code review, or at least pointing you to, the right section of the building code. And by no means am I suggesting, we just let these tools kind of, they're not perfect, right? But they can at least help point you in the right direction.
Yes. Make you more efficient with your time.
Yeah. We still have a liability at the end of the day as licensed architects to make sure that the code review is correct, the zoning review is correct. But, if we can even save, minutes or seconds, that adds up over time.
For sure.
Right. And so, I've slowly been developing this kind of toolkit of tools that can help with, with the building code review, zoning review, expediting, specification writing, all the stuff that we spend so much time on.
Right.
And what I'm seeing is, really creates a lot more time for doing what we love, which is design, and so for me, that's the whole objective here, is finding more time to focus on design.
Yeah.
And using these tools to kind of, to get there.
You've been hearing us talk about tools and how the right ones don't replace creativity, they expand it. Very similar to Aquanta Pools. They're one of the few companies that build pools using biodesign systems derived from Italy, and one of only 2 suppliers in Canada. It's a process that shapes pools from layered natural materials instead of poured concrete. But if you're set on concrete, you can still use it. This structure is built from protective geotextiles, waterproof membranes, and composite blends of quartz and resin. Each layer is contoured, compacted, and finished by hand, creating a pool that feels more like it was carved into the site rather than built on top of it. The surface can be tuned, smooth, textured, or stone-like. Edges can roll into the landscape or sit sharp and architectural. The result isn't just aesthetic, it's lighter on the land, faster to install, and built to move naturally with temperature and soil. It's a system that merges engineering with craft, a reflection of the same balance we've been talking about in design, innovation that still feels human. If you want to learn more and get connected to Aquanta, please email me. It's Jonathan, Jonathan @waldenhomes.ca, and I'm happy to connect you with Yuri and his team. For now, let's go back to the conclusion with Jeff.
I'm going to go into everything you've just talked about the current practice and what you're trying to do with AI in a moment, but I do want to ask, when you were at these other practices prior to, did it incorporate travel to have to go and see projects that you were either involved with?
Sure.
Or for research purposes?
Yep.
So where were some of those places that you were able to do and see?
Montreal, Vancouver. Like I said, we were doing a lot in the GTA.
Yeah.
So, there was a lot of travel around this region as well. But, Halifax, virtually every, kind of urban center across Canada.
Okay.
Yeah. So there was a significant amount of time.
I asked that because there's also variations of architecture in all these different areas, right? And so in some capacity, what you see somewhere, you might not see somewhere else. And when you see a certain building, you can say, this is a so-and-so's building because there's either an allure to it or a style to it, some capacity. And that also informs you as a professional and what you're looking for and how you see what you're going to design. So when you go and you create Bloom, as of this year, are you seeing projects that are coming to you that are all local, or are you seeing anything that's coming to you as a result of connectivity or methodology that's allowing you to see something outside of Toronto?
Primarily local.
Okay.
We have a project right now in the Bahamas that's it's a significant condo beach club project down in the Bahamas. So that's an international project.
Yep.
We're just starting a multi-building apartment development in the Windsor area.
Okay.
So it's kind of going full circle back to the hometown. But yeah, a lot of around this region, certainly.
Okay. I like that. You say that, you know, mainly here, but we also have something in the Hollis, in Windsor. Like, it's not all here.
And it's an
Okay.
interesting scale too, because we're trying to do kind of all things residential. Like I still love, like I really love doing the high rise residential work. Spent a lot of my career doing that type of work,
Mhm.
and very much want to continue to pursue doing that type of work. But also, as I said, the single family, like very custom homes, I love it and I really get into it. And so, it's kind of an interesting like range of scales that we're going right from, smaller 5,000 plus square foot homes all the
Yeah.
way up to 30, 40 story apartment rental buildings,
Right.
condo projects. So it keeps us on our toes. And I like the different typologies because you focus on, or you learn about different construction methodologies, right?
Yeah.
Like wood frame construction,
Right.
very, very different
Right.
from poured in place, cast in place concrete
Yeah.
that we see in high rise buildings.
So when you started the practice, did you start it on your own? Do you have a partner? Do you have staff? Or actually, let's just start off. Do you have a partner or is it just you?
No, I have a partner, and she's leading so we're also interior design practice. So she's a, experienced interior designer.
Yep.
So she's leading that side of the practice. And also, she manages the kind of office functions. We're about to bring on our very first full-time staff.
Okay.
Imminently. And then
Both exciting and daunting.
exciting and daunting, and then have a number of contract staff
Okay.
that we're working with as well. So the whole idea is we want to keep it as lean and tight as we can.
Yep.
And utilize these tools that we have in our toolbox to do that, so that we don't, part of what I've been critical of I've been around for a while now. I've worked for a number of firms, and it always comes down to the larger the firm gets, the profit margins tend to shrink. And so, trying to like keep that front and center and use these tools to help
Yes.
so we don't, kind of scale up too quickly and make a little bit of money along the way.
I mean, that would be the nice intent, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And
This is not a sponsorship.
This is not a sponsorship. And I don't think there's anything wrong with, with the word profit. And I do think that it's, architects tend to have this outlook out of university, like, we'll just design and figure out how to be profitable later.
Yeah.
And so fortunately we're in a position where we're starting this practice from scratch. And so I think, we have the ability to try to keep the team as light as we can, utilize the tools that are available to help facilitate that.
Yeah.
And then we'll scale. And so currently the team is very tight. We also have, he's kind of a silent partner, but he's engaged on the AI side of what we're doing.
Okay.
He's a tech entrepreneur. He's started up and sold several prominent tech companies, and he's helping us on, ultimately we want to develop tools that, we can use specific to the type of work that we're doing, AI driven tools. And so he's helping on that front.
So tell me something. So what does the AI tool look like? I'm not asking you for specifics, because if you're gonna, I don't want to give away some of your secrets, but more so, is this something that's helping you with defining scopes of work? Is this something that's helping you with putting together a drawing package? Like what?
Sure.
How do you integrate this into your workflow?
Sure. So there's several different tools that we're using. Some are, so they're all out in the market. They're proprietary tools, but they help with everything from, so say we're focused on a much larger master plan community, for example. There are tools out there that we're using that can help define, the master plan, the best positioning of buildings, not getting into the details of
what do they look like?
Yeah, the efficiencies of the
Yes.
build. Well, I mean, we do start to get into like the efficiencies at a high level, but just, broad scale master planning, there are some amazing tools out there that help with that. Or, we can zoom right in, and there are tools that are helping us lay out condo or rental building floor plates to help
Right.
figure out, like you could just pump out many, 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 and I'm talking dozens or even hundreds of iterations. So you define, you can define the perimeter, the envelope of the building, and use these tools to help evaluate what's the highest efficiency. How many units can I get if we're talking, a multi-res building? How many units can I get on a floor? What's
Right.
and you can plug and play like the efficiency targets that you're after, the unit sizes that you're after. You can customize it based on our local standards here. So we know the stair shafts, elevator shafts, garbage chutes, like all of the inner workings of these floor plates are pretty consistent across most high-rise buildings, if we're talking high-rise. And so it'll work around those elements, right? So you're still customizing it, you're still basing it off of our standards here. And then certainly there are tools, visualization tools. We're using a lot of different ones, everything from Gemini's Nano Banana for incredible visualization tool. We actually use that to help with some 3D modeling as well. Taking sketches, converting them into
Right.
very detailed 3D models. There's tools that we're using that can generate a hand sketch of a floor plan into a fully functional Revit model. With walls, doors, windows, proper ceiling heights. It's pretty incredible.
So for those of you out there that love to hand sketch but don't actually like to work on the computer,
It's perfect.
there is a solution for you that clearly doesn't require the same level of intelligence
That's right.
that the computer will require of you.
And don't get me wrong, I love hand sketching. I love kind of taking it old school. I love drawing. I'm drawing all the time. But sometimes it's just, you don't have the luxury of time, right? And so if I'm able to kind of put an idea on paper and then get that idea into a
Development, some capacity of
fully
what it could
functional
be.
BIM
Yeah.
model
Yeah.
in a short amount of time, to me it's priceless, right? And it gives us the ability to just see these projects from different angles. We are all like a product of our own imagination, and sometimes our imagination can be limited, or
Yeah.
when you're staring at something so closely, sometimes we've all had those moments where you're staring at a problem for hours or days or whatever it is, and then your colleague walks by and it goes, "Hey, did you ever think of that? How did I not see that?" Right? When it's too close to you, when you're too close to the project, sometimes you just miss things, and so these tools help with that.
Yeah. It's the same as like when you're walking, you lose your key.
Yeah.
Right? Like walking past it, except that here there's no AI.
Or it's in your
Right.
hand.
Yeah.
Like
It's
what?
the best when you have your glasses on. And I know that again, we're digressing. But the concept of like all of those scenarios where there's no real solution other than you have to find it. Whereas here, now there are actual like real
Yeah.
proper solutions to these problems of, you run out of time, you have a deadline.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to get there. And at least you have a starting point of
Yeah.
what a design could look like that you can then go and tweak and work from. And it's all based on the prompts and the information you're feeding it.
And that's it. It's all about the information that you're putting in, right? And so I think
all of these tools are only as good as the information you give. So sorry that I'm interrupting you again, but I say this because there is the concept that if you are not the one physically doing it, then are you really actually fulfilling your role? And the reality is the AI can't fulfill the role without your knowledge.
that's right. And I think we're still responsible for the vision, right? Like I always still have a concept, a vision that I want to start with. What's the seed of the idea? Like I don't, and there are others out there that will use AI to help generate that, that seed of the idea. For me, I still that's the kind of romantic part of what we do. It's like, what is that concept? What is the big idea? And I still like to have that, kind of generated in my own brain. And then once that's there, it's like, okay, now let's start playing with that that idea and use these tools and see how it morphs. And, and a lot of these tools are very iterative, right?
Mhm.
So it's not just like, it's never perfect what computes first or 10th or even 100th iteration, but sometimes, you land on something, you go, that's really cool. Like, I didn't think that I can come up with that from this seedling of
Right.
a thought.
And do you find that these AI softwares are able to fulfill what you need when it comes to math? Are they accurate? Or
Don't really use it for math.
well,
Like,
are you calculating total square footage?
yeah, I mean,
linear footage?
we
Like,
rely on no, we rely on, whether it's BIM like Revit, or AutoCAD or SketchUp or whatever. Like, we're still using a lot of common tools
Okay.
that are being used across the industry. I wouldn't say we're necessarily using it for mathematical like computation.
Okay.
Certainly, we're using it. If we have like target efficiencies that we're going after. Yeah, we've heard from a developer that typical efficiency of a whatever high-rise tower floor, as an example, has to be 88%, or this project won't work.
Yeah.
Then that's the baseline that we will plug into to the model, but we're not necessarily using it like to compute the equations, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know of devices. I know of software that is like sometimes inaccurate with this stuff, and it can actually
For sure.
drive someone crazy.
And it hallucinates.
Yeah.
And you have to know that. And it can be frustrating, frankly. Like,
Yeah.
sometimes, you get into this iterative mode with the technology and you go, I could have just, drawn something myself and didn't have to deal with the frustration of the hallucination.
Yeah.
I do think that we'll, in very short order, get past those, like those hiccups.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've been using ChatGPT at Walden now, like on a proper paid account. It's got to be over a year and a half almost now. And when you're working in it all the time, you start to know how it can work for you, but also, if you're not paying attention, how it can really work against you.
Yeah, bingo.
And so it is not. It's as smart and as concerned as people can be about how smart AI is. It's not fully there yet. It's learning.
You have to review.
But you have to review. So there's still a lot of liability and responsibility on you as a human.
Yeah.
To go and make sure that this work is correct, because ultimately it's your work.
That's right. And at the end of the day, it's my stamp that is going on, on these drawings, right? It's my liability.
Yeah.
So you have to be cognizant of that. I certainly am. It's not perfect. And, you can't expect it to be perfect. It's a tool. Yeah. It's like any other tool.
Yeah.
Right? No tool is perfect, but you have enough of them, that it's funny to me. Sometimes we'll spend time using one AI, like using ChatGPT to help prompt something for another platform.
AI.
Right? Like, help me come up with a prompt for this other tool, because I can't quite get it there. It always makes me laugh, like when the two start to speak to each other.
Have you? Yeah. So this is a complete, again, here we go, digressing from the conversation. But have you seen the video of the two AIs talking to each other? There was a video that came out like months ago.
I don't
two
think
separate
so.
systems talking to each other, and they went into a code language between AI.
Oh boy.
So when we're done recording, we'll try that. We'll see if we can actually get the two of them to do it.
That's great.
I'm so curious to know, can we do it?
Well, I'm definitely no coding expert. Spent zero time in my life learning to code.
Right.
But I did go down a rabbit hole several months ago of developing an app, a building code review app. And I had gotten turned on to the idea of using this Claude AI, which is it's like ChatGPT for coding.
Yeah.
And somebody had showed it to me, like, oh, this is really cool. A friend of mine had created an app to generate building massing, high-rise massing, but he had custom sliders, where you could you can adjust the number of floors, you could twist the building. It was primitive, but it was pretty cool. And at that time, that's when I started thinking, wow, I should try it, because I've spent so much time using the building code and flipping through the pages in the code all the time, making sure we have our bases covered. So I thought, I wonder if I can create my own app, code compliance app, and with pretty limited coding knowledge, pretty limited knowledge of the software of Claude AI, I came up with a pretty cool beta version. My own code compliance tool is not perfect, but I got it to a stage where I can, upload a PDF of a floor plan, and it can visually analyze things like, if I have dead end corridor conditions, or, whatever it was pretty successfully able to understand both part 3 and part 9 of the building code and redline it for me, and, create a markup, and then I can download that markup. And so I think it's kind of interesting. I don't know what it means for the future of code consultants, because I can see a pretty quick path to, very solid tools.
Right.
And so this is a tool now that I've been using just in my own practice. And again, it saves an immense amount of time.
I would believe it.
Just pointing me, hey, have you thought about, because the code is so circular, so you check one section, then that section tells you to check another section, and you can kind of go on forever. So if, a dumb architect like myself can, come up with a pretty handy app like that, I can only imagine where we're going to be in a year's time.
Yeah.
A year's time, even in a few months' time.
Right. So outside of all of this, what does it look like for you in life? How do you decompress from having started your practice? What does that look like? What are some of the hobbies you've got now?
Well, I spend a lot of time with my wife and daughter. I love, we love spending family time, love working out, love being outside. I'm always moving, love playing music, playing in bands.
What does moving look like?
Moving is
run?
Yeah, running, walking, I just can't sit still. So do meetings from, try to get in my steps every day.
Yeah.
And, spend time with friends. And and again, I come back to all of these tools that we're using, I think just help give us more time, in life to be able to do these things. Right. So we're not just kind of glued to our computers or, in our offices. And so it, but certainly starting a practice, an architectural practice, it's a lot of work. And so, for the next foreseeable future, it's going to be scaling this company. We're very focused on creating a very diverse practice. So not being so reliant on the market, the local economy here, trying to, find our way into places like Bahamas, or,
Right.
We've been looking at some work down in Jamaica. And so just trying to keep it as diverse as we can, and then focus on projects that we're really passionate about.
Sounds amazing. Okay.
Yeah.
Jeff, thanks, man. Thanks for coming over for lunch.
Thank you for inviting me into your beautiful space here. It's a beautiful sunny day out for us, so thank you.
Yeah,
I know I'm in good company. You've had some incredible guests on this podcast, so thank you for bringing me on board. And hopefully I'll come back in a year's time, or in a couple years' time, and we'll be scaled up. We'll be rolling.
Yeah, dialed.
We'll be dialed in.
I appreciate it. Yeah, thanks for being a part of it all. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.